I think sometimes as business owners, we tend to be consumed with what we're looking for, and we're looking outside of our organization. And sometimes we got to give people a chance, hand a baton to them and see what they do when they carry it. You might be surprised.
So where are you finding your biggest challenges now when it comes to staffing and to managing?
The biggest challenge I would say right now is finding qualified candidates. People don't show up for interviews, much less sometimes they don't show up for their first day if they agree to come to work. One of the things I think is a major flaw in this industry is many people are undercompensated. I think about the insurance side. Those people have health insurance, they have good PTO, paid time off programs, they make a living wage, right?
Yes, they do.
And are we doing that for our people?
How do you go about keeping that conversation professional with an adjuster when at certain times you might think they are potentially the biggest idiot on the face of the earth?
So many times trust is broken in this industry because the adjusters don't trust the contractors, and so the contractors write a fat scope, knowing that, okay, I'm going to give them something to trim, and well, what if they don't trim it?
This industry is notorious for up and down cash flow issues that take place. A lot of it is beyond your control.
Well, one of the major changes that we made was
Hello, and welcome to Violin's GPS podcast, Growing Professional Skills. I am your host, Jeff Jones. This podcast is specifically designed to have conversations with owners, key decision makers, thought leaders, experts in small businesses, primarily in the trades. We're looking at restoration and HVAC, plumbing, talking through the high highs and the low lows and what's coming up next on these companies and what people have struggled with and where they've succeeded, in hoping that you can get a little bit of information, some nuggets and some strategies to help you grow yourself and your business. And our guest today is the owner of RestorePro in Sandusky, Ohio, the roller coaster capital of the world. This is my good friend, Mr. Jon Fields. Jon, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me on, Jeff.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, there's a specific reason I want people to know why I asked you to come on to this episode. This is our very first session that we have recorded, and there's a reason why I wanted it to be you. Number one, you've got a lot of experience. You've got some great opinions. You've got some strong opinions. But also, you were the very first business owner in the trades that I got to meet after coming on board here at Violin Management a little over a decade ago. I think about my third day in my onboarding training process, and I came into the office and Chuck Violin looked at me and said, "I'm tired of seeing your face. Get in your car, drive to Sandusky, and you're going to go spend 2 days with Jon Fields." And you were kind enough to open up your business. You introduced me to your employees, showed me what they do, took me out on some job sites. I remember a fire loss, my first time ever walking into a burned out building. You also took me to Kalahari Indoor Water Park and showed me very quickly I did not have a future in carpet cleaning, as I spent about 20 seconds on that machine. Felt like I was going to rip my arms out of the shoulder because I was doing it wrong. So I appreciate you opening up your doors back then, and I appreciate you coming on board with me today and coming full circle with all of this.
Well, I felt it's an honor to be the first, and I didn't remember that until you brought it up, and I do remember that when I think back. You were a young pup coming in to Violand, and yes, we've had a good relationship over the years. But yeah, I do remember thinking back, and I've had a couple of the consultants with VMA join the team and come in for some training just to get a look under the covers and behind the scenes of what restoration is all about.
Yeah, you've always been very, very good with opening everything up and showing you, hey, here's the good and the bad and the things we succeed at and the struggles that we have. And this is unique to our industry and what we're facing. And that's the type of conversations that we're going to have here on this podcast. So let's start out with you and RestorePro. And when did you know you wanted to own your own business?
That probably goes back to when I was a youth, but didn't really have the experience or confidence to step out. I did not go to college. I did have a great career opportunity and grew up in the world of materials management, grew with a company from a few million in sales to an international prospect of maybe 80 million in sales when I left. And I learned the implementation of MRP systems and computerization of planning. I worked in materials management, learned how to play shop and run an organization, and a lot of leadership training. And I had a lot of good mentors. So that translated for me. But got to a point in my career where my career was threatened as it relates to the circumstances there. Sometimes we have to get uncomfortable to take chance.
Absolutely.
And I interviewed and looked at a career change. They had a reduction in force. It created an opportunity for me, honestly, the seed money to step out and give me a little bit of a ramp.
Mm-hmm.
And so I sent an RFQ, request for quote, out to John Don, worked with Mike Cushing and Bill Gehring. They introduced the Strategies for Success program to me as part of that RFQ program. It was kind of one of the hooks that they used to said, hey, not only can we supply the equipment and we're really good at that, but we also have this program which could help you launch your company. So I actually went through Strategies for Success. 1998 was the year that we launched, and I did Strategies for Success program, met Chuck in that program before I even bought my first piece of equipment.
Yeah, very, very smart to get that type of education and training prior to learning it in the real world where those mistakes are a lot more costly. For those who don't remember, Strategies for Success was an outstanding week-long program that John Don put on for years, and you would go in and they would cover everything you needed to know from a sales and marketing, accounting and finance, operations, and teach you how to be a better business owner, teach you how to be a better restorer. Unfortunately, it sort of went away after COVID, and it'd be nice to see him pick that back up. I know here we are all these years later, and I still get phone calls from people saying, the first time I met Chuck Violan was at Strategies for Success 8-9 years ago, and I wasn't ready for you guys then, but I'm ready for you now. And that type of education and training for a young business owner is absolutely critical. What did you pick up from those types of trainings early on that helped you launch the business a little bit more effectively?
Well, my culture from my career, the company I worked with was raging customer service. So that was in my DNA. I have strong drive. I had a good rounded business education in that career. And so when I went through the program, it just reinforced the culture that I wanted to instill in my business in terms of white glove service was one of our trade logos. We started the company out as Steam Professional Carpet and Upholstery Cleaning and Steam Pro. And as we looked at, or I looked at that whole process, it just kind of fit for me. It played so easily. What I learned was I needed to understand numbers. I needed to understand how to build a business. And Chuck, when he did the program on P&L and profits, really resonated with me. And the fact that he's local, right? He's only an hour and a half down the road. And I said to Chuck, would you be willing to work with me? And he said, yes, I will. So he's very gracious. Chuck drove to Sandusky, I can't tell you how many times, to meet with myself and my management team, which was my dad at the time. And my mom came on board later, but he would meet with us. And then as we added employees, we would huddle and we would meet. We would go through the strategies of how to sell and how to market. And you remember the happy bags? Are you familiar with that?
I don't think I am. No.
So ask Chuck. He introduced the concept of using happy bags as an icebreaker introduction to make route marketing calls in the sales world.
Okay.
Anyway, what I said to Chuck was, I know I have the passion. I believe the skill. I'm a good cleaner. Eye for detail. I'm going to go out and hustle. But what I want from you is help me to not fail because I didn't push the right buttons. When you start a business, you can fail. You can do all the right things. It's learning lessons, right? I didn't want to fail because I didn't know what I didn't know. And that's where Chuck really mentored me and helped me make sure that I could be confident and not give up when you have failures, right? You want to know, even if you have a failure, you got to get through a few no's before you get a yes. And knowing we were pushing the right buttons is what Chuck did for me early on. Plus looking at the numbers, making sure that we were maintaining something that was viable.
So you get into the industry, you were Steam Pro, you turned that into RestorePro, obviously professional. That pro piece was vital. We didn't call it Fields Restoration. We went with the professional side to it. You bring in your first couple employees. Tell me what that experience was like for you, becoming a manager, becoming an owner, and being responsible for others.
Yeah. When you hire somebody, it's a commitment, right? I view my employees as a liability, not a negative term, but a responsibility might be a better way to say it, but they, one of the first things you do when you're trying to manage profits, cut labor. I don't believe in that. You gotta look at your labor. Obviously you gotta be viable, but you gotta be able to pay your employees. And so, when you hire somebody, it's a commitment, right? I view my employees as a liability, not a negative term, but a responsibility. We might be a better way to say it, but they, one of the first things you do when you're trying to manage profits, cut labor. I don't believe in that. You gotta look at your labor. Obviously you gotta be viable, but human resource is our biggest investment and also the most critical piece. Developing people to develop profits, that's the philosophy of the Oland. I bought into that from day one. Before it, probably that was even the hallmark of how you guys described your consulting business, as Chuck grew that. So I knew Chuck before VMA was a multi-employee company. It was very young in the days. So I kind of grew up with him and watched him develop his business as well. Learned a lot of lessons. But for me, it's a serious thing when you bring somebody in and know that their mortgage and their food and their success is hitched. That wagon's hitched to your success. And so you're very careful. Hire hard, as Scott says. I didn't view it as hiring hard, but I was very careful. I hired people that were loyal and worked hard and had a good work ethic. And some of those people that came on, Tyson Murray, one of them was with me for, 20 years. And when Tyson came on board, he was young. He worked 2 jobs to try to support his family and work his way into my company. And we both agreed that when the demands of RestorePro reached the point where he couldn't sustain that extra effort, we would both know that we were safe to bring him in. So it's just a big commitment. It's a big mental shift. But I had good people, and we delegated. I have another employee that's with me currently, Lem Giuliano, has been with me since the early days, probably one of my first hires after Tyson. Of course, my dad was out marketing and selling for us. And Lem's been with me a long time. And same thing, Lem was looking to relocate to the area, and we were able to match up that opportunity. Lem's career, by the way, came from drywall. At the time, we did reconstruction services. And so he came in and supported that, plus clean carpet. And was a good carpet cleaner, is a good carpet cleaner to this day, still cleans carpet, sells carpet cleaning. I mean, he manages the Kalahari account as an example, and he manages a big book of carpet cleaning business here, as well as bringing in restoration sales. He is an incredible talent. And I will say this, people like to do business with people they know, like, and trust. He does that. That's the moniker of who Lem is. But I will say this, as we bring people into our lives and develop them, and I say that again, develop them, give them opportunities, give them a chance to grow. So Lem was a drywaller. He became a carpet cleaner, a water tech, right? He went through the schooling and training and the on-call, extracting water, doing structural drying. And eventually he had some conditions with his back that made everyday carpet cleaning something that I was concerned about for him. And we said, hey, let's throw your hat in a ring on sales. And he said, I'll give it a go. And he's got good communication skills, and he's been very, very successful. And I would say that he is the model of what a sales and marketing person would be in this industry.
Oh, that's outstanding. That's a tough transition, I think, to go from that operations side where I would just want to fix the thing. I want to swing the hammer. I want to get everything dry and clean. And most of the time they're working on their own. There's not a lot of interaction with the customer taking place. To go from that to go into the sales in a completely different, I think, just set of skills and personality and outlook and responsibility. Oh, how did you get them prepared for that? And was that a natural piece on his part?
Well, I wouldn't say it was natural, and then I would say it was natural. So one of the things unique about Lem is he's been in a training program a lot of years since his youth for public speaking. It's associated with our ministerial training, and that translates. So he already had people skills. He knew how to talk. He was coached on that through that training, and that translated over then to working with people. I will say this. If you've ever been to a team building exercise, and if you've played sports, you know this. You show up, right, to play sports, and you've never played with these guys before, or you see the opposing team, you don't know what their talent is. And you go out and you see guys go out and you say, wow, look at the performance, okay? I think sometimes as business owners, we tend to be consumed with what we're looking for, and we're looking outside of our organization. And sometimes we got to give people a chance, hand a baton to them and see what they do when they carry it. You might be surprised.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's really great advice, because most businesses in these industries, this isn't Google where you can get promoted 30 different ways and times. These are pretty flatline organizations as far as that organizational chart looks like. So when somebody wants to take on additional responsibilities, there's limited opportunities. Have you come across that a couple different times in the company where, that you've got a 18-year-old that wants to be the president in 4 years, and there's only so many times you can promote this person?
Yeah. And that's a good problem to have.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it, though, is having those honest conversations about what a career in restoration looks like. So many times you recruit people and, share in the front end process that there is a career opportunity and then live up to that. One of the things I think is a major flaw in this industry is many people are undercompensated. Do we view ourselves as professionals like plumbers and electricians? And we should. And do we operate our business as though we're professionals, or do we look at it more as a lower end janitorial service? We're not janitorial at all. There are elements of janitorial services that get needed into what we do every day, but for the most part, it's specialty, it's education, it's working in people's homes. We have to be trusted, right? The risk of having people into your home, how do you feel about that? People being in your home when you're not there, handling your personal belongings. I mean, there's an emotional issue that goes on in the disaster restoration world and the clients we serve. And when we can make the connection and we can share that with our employees and they can understand the value that they're adding to help restore somebody's life, and then the culture, make sure that we can help elevate that in their mind that, hey, this is really a professional service, and map out what that looks like. So Violand offers a lot of educational pieces and tools. We need to plug people in. Sometimes hearing it from the owner isn't the same as hearing it from an outside person. And then you develop the growth plan for that person. There's tremendous opportunity in this industry. And I look at it this way: even if I can't develop that person in my company to the point where I can promote them, where they're going to be lifelong clients, they still could have a career path in restoration.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think one of the responsibilities owners need to understand, a lot of these people that come to work for you, this is your career, this is your life. You've got the lease, and you've got all the blood, sweat, and tears put into this. And a lot of the people that come to work for you, they're viewing it as a job and not a career. And when you have those differences of opinions and expectations, it can cause some kind of conflict. But you still have to understand that part of your responsibility in hiring somebody, not only to make them a better technician or make them a better project manager, but it's to make them a better human being so that they can give back in whatever direction they end up going to. And do you ever have those types of conversations with employees as far as, where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Yeah, that's a big part of it. And sometimes we forget that. I mean, the investment that I make, the risk that I take is much bigger typically than your employee, but the reward also is much bigger. And we got to remember that, we can lose our balance in how we manage. Our expectations can be not in harmony with that perspective that you just shared. So yeah, it's having honest conversation about what employees' goals are and where do they see themselves, and can we match up a career that helps fulfill that, or maybe it's a stop along the way where they're progressing through development. Don't pigeonhole anybody, I guess, is my message here. Help people get what they want. If you help them get what they want, they're going to help you get what you need to.
Yeah, without a doubt. So early on, you have a really unique situation in this business. We work with a lot of second generation business owners where mom and dad started the company, and I come from that. My father owned 2 different companies growing up. I'm used to that small business lifestyle and family business lifestyle. Yours is a different situation. You started this company, and then 2 of your early on employees were mom and dad. So you had dad out there selling for you. You had mom answering the phones. Tell me how that happened and some of the early experiences of having your parents actually work for you.
Well, career-wise, my dad was struggling. We came to Ohio in 1975, and he was the general manager of Lyman Boats, and that company eventually failed. He was selling insurance and didn't have health insurance. That was one of the big concerns for me. So we talk about reasons why we get uncomfortable, make decisions that we make. I felt the need to try to create and help my family. So this wasn't just about me. It was a family issue as well we were trying to address. So I took it upon myself to roll, and I felt very confident that I could build something that would be more than just a job. It would be a career, a business that could provide not just for my family, but other families as well. And my dad's strength, he is a people person. He is very, very, very good in sales and building relationships. And I would say that our success early and really growing as a restoration company, but even our carpet cleaning, we did pre-inspections. We bought into the process of not quoting over the phone. We didn't compete on price. We competed on service. Our tickets were large, and he sold. And the early days, I was out producing what he sold. So, if there was something wrong with the work that was done, sometimes it was a tough pill to swallow, but there normally wasn't, because I was very interested. I'd make my own quality calls. But as we grew, my mom, answering the phone for me was becoming very, very troublesome, right? You're connected to a cell phone. You're trying to do the work. Suddenly I couldn't get my work done because I was answering the calls.
Yeah, we see
So
that a
my
lot.
mom volunteered. Yeah, she said, hey, you know what? Why don't I take the phones and help with that? And so it was just a natural fit. My mom and dad had a relationship that was remarkable. A lot of spouses and so forth can't work together, or it creates conflict. They were truly life partners, and they were what uh, was a remarkable example of people that got along and enjoyed each other's company. So they worked well together. She kept him organized. She was helping him. She would do the quality calls, and of course I had a grin after she did a quality call, and somebody said, I'm not sure I like the way Jerry handled this situation. And she picked the phone up. Hey, you got to go deal with this. But they could do that without there being contentiousness. So I was blessed to have those personalities, and we got to consider those personalities in the dynamics work can bring into the family. But my dad and I agreed early on. I called him Jerry. He called me John. Wasn't mom and dad. And I was trying to build a company. That's our logo is not Jon Fields or Fields Restoration. It's RestorePro Disaster Cleanup and Restoration. Wanted a corporate brand. I want this to live on. It's not just about me and a job and wind it down. Currently, my son-in-law has joined the company. So now, Chuck just went through succession planning, right, with the sale of the company.
Yes, he did.
I went to his succession planning session last year, and I'll be, I'm sure, tapping into some of that with Chuck and some of my other associates as I figure out what the next 10 years look like for me. I'm going to turn 60 next summer.
So with having mom and dad there and keeping it professional when we're at work, keeping it family when we're away, I know that sounds easy. I've been in your shoes. That's not easy. There's a lot of dynamics, and there's a lot of holidays, and there's a lot of interaction that can take place there. How did you keep that separate? Do you think it really brought your parents and yourself closer together, or did it cause you to see things in a different way and influence you in a different way?
No, it was, I was so blessed. I mean, I don't know if my experience is what everybody's experience would be, but my dad was all about making the business successful. And, he was proud to see the company grow. Of course, it was nice to have, a decent living and health insurance. We were able to do some remarkable things in terms of turning around the career slide that he was on. Gave him a sense of purpose. He contributed. And I can't say enough about, there was no negatives. I can't think of a negative in our personal relationship that resulted from that relationship.
How did the experience of having your mom and dad work for you, but really working with mom and dad, how did that provide you any kind of insight or getting you ready to having your son-in-law now working for you and the dynamics that go on there? Obviously, there's times where you've got to treat him as an employee, but he's also your daughter's husband, and that can get tricky at times. I have a 3-year-old daughter, and I'm starting to understand what that really means. And did working with your parents, did that change how you think it influenced or changed how you work with your son-in-law?
Jeff, I'm a strong personality. When you talk about leadership, I want the ball in the last 30 seconds. I want to take the last shot. If there's conflict, I want to step in and be involved in resolving it. I don't shrink back from being a leader. So I've got to be careful then as I develop him. So I've talked to Scott about a development program for him. Fortunately, I have my number 2 here in charge is very interested in helping develop him.
Okay.
And so we have a good opening. He's been with me 4 years now, I think already. And he's spent his time in the field, right? So now we're trying to have him become a master at estimating. So that's one of the things he needs to master. That's like, where do we go to progress? So we'll do his leadership development. We'll be very involved with the training that Violan brings to the table. We got to teach him how to read a P&L, right? Not that he doesn't know how to read a P&L, but let's be honest, not many people do.
Correct.
That is something,
read it the right way.
And you only learn it by going through it many times with somebody who does know how to read it and spot trends and so forth. So, he's young, like all of us when we're young. We're invincible. Right? And I said to him, slow down, enjoy life. You'll have your chance in the tumbler here. So I want to make sure I don't bury him with too much responsibility too fast. So we're just getting to the point where we'll start transitioning into more of the day to day. He's anxious for it, and I'm excited about it. It's hard for me though. I have to learn how to let go and delegate. So I'm trying to do more of that. The day to day runs here without a whole lot of my hands on, which I think is a big deal. Run a $2.5 million company, and I don't come in for production meetings or kickoffs in the morning anymore. That's all handled. I haven't for several years.
Nice.
That's all handled by that group. So the strategy on our business plan this year is developing very strong lines of responsibilities and letting people go, letting them do their job, and instead of jumping in to pick up the pieces when the pieces come apart, coaching and mentoring, and let them muddle through. Sometimes we have to fail before we can be successful. So that's, for me, one of the lessons that I have to really, really hang on to as we transition.
I think when you deal with that second generation as the father or the mother or the owner, it took you decades to learn everything that you had to learn. And most of that happened by trial and error and mistakes made and lessons learned. And then the second generation comes into the company and they automatically, there's some of that mom and dad, so-and-so, they don't know what they're talking about. I'm going to do things my own way. And they want to speed it up so much. And you, as your second generation, you expect that they're going to pick this up quickly because they're surrounded by it, but they can't because it's not realistic. So both sides have this schedule of speeding up this learning process that takes place, and it doesn't really work that way, that they do need time to experience some of these lessons on their own, that sometimes just hearing it from you isn't good enough. But they got to get their hands dirty.
Yep. I agree with that 100%. So often I'm used to being the guy that when there's conflict, pick it up and resolve it. And now I'm sitting down saying, how are you going to resolve that? What do you think? What if we tried this? What if we tried that? Here's what's worked for me in the past. Or sometimes I'll be real direct. You need to have this tough conversation. And so that, but I got to let them do it. That's where the growth happens is, having what did I say? I asked Chuck, what should I be saying? What should I be doing? Making sales calls or making decisions in the business. You have the sounding board, right? And then you got to go as an owner, carry it out. Well, now I have to do the same thing for my people. I have to become their Chuck, even though they have access to the consulting and the resources that I've got in the company with you guys, but they have to now start, plugging in at that level. I can't be the insulator on all of the issues. And that's how delegation happens. We have, a sales manager, we have operations manager, we have estimator, business manager, we're delegating and building a team here. But it's behooves me now to empower them. That's probably one of the biggest difficulties. I have to change the way I measure success. I'm used to, give me the ball, I'll run through the line. Now I have to maybe step back and coach because somebody else has to carry the ball for a while now.
Yeah, that's moving from the manager to the leader, the strategic piece to it. Thank you for listening to Violand's GPS podcast. I hope you're finding valuable insights and practical wisdom to guide you on your journey. Violand's 2025 Restoration Project Management Program, offered exclusively from April 7th through the 12th in Canton, Ohio, has long been regarded as the benchmark for professional project management training. Together, Violand coaches, industry leaders, university-level corporate trainers, and subject matter experts deliver proven systems and best practices to skillfully oversee restoration losses in alignment with the science of project management. Increase margins across all types of jobs and manage higher workloads with superior customer service. Don't miss out. Register today at violand.com or use the links provided on the screen or in the description. Now, let's get back to our show. So we've talked about dealing with the longtime employees and we've talked about having family in the business, but you've got a lot of people who come work for you that there isn't an initial connection to. So where are you finding your biggest challenges now when it comes to staffing and to managing the employees you have in the business?
The biggest challenge I would say right now is finding qualified candidates. I can't tell you, something happened in the workforce. I don't have to say this a lot. I'm sure everyone is experiencing the same thing. But there's been a switch. People don't show up for interviews, much less sometimes they don't show up for their first day if they agree to come to work.
Mm.
And the casual attitude about, for me, I remember when I was looking for a job, best foot forward. I wore a tie. My resumes might go in on colored paper so I could be noticed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was like you're really working and competing. And now candidates come in, you're looking for somebody that shows some of those elements of want to.
Mm-hmm.
You're hiring for attitude more than you are for skill at this point. And then just having people who will show up. It's a tough market for us. So we're trying to increase our wages, increase our benefits package to attract good people, and then hire hard and fire fast, as Chuck and Scott. I think that's Scott's moniker. I don't have a good answer because I would hire 4 people today if I had the right 4 candidates. So we just continue to churn and continue to look. When I'm out in public and I see somebody that strikes me as having a good work ethic in a different line of work, it could be in a service business, it could be a bartender,
Mm-hmm.
a waiter, somebody at Lowe's or Home Depot. I'm always passing cards out, talking, and trying to find that next person, constantly recruiting.
Have you found any questions that you've started asking during the interview process that are giving you better insight to who this person really is and saying, hey, I think they can fit in our culture. I think they can fit in our organization?
Well, so I'm looking for people who want a career,
Mm-hmm.
people who are looking for a reciprocal relationship based on loyalty and team. So you're asking questions that kind of delve into their work experience, how they've dealt with conflict, why they have left, why they're either currently employed or unemployed, why are they in the job market? Just trying to get a perspective on if they really have the want to. If somebody has want to, the rest you can teach. But you got to find people who really want to show up and are career minded.
So knowing that you've got a good heart and these employees have meant a lot to you over the years, and you're trying to build them up and they're trying to build you up, and there's that symbiotic relationship that takes place. But the saying that it's just business, I don't necessarily agree with. That's very, very difficult to do because this is all personal to different levels. So when you've got that employee who's come on board and you've got to know them and you've got to know the family, and then something happens and there has to be a separation that takes place, how do you handle that separation between the business feelings, the personal feelings, and what it's like to manage and lose employees that you care about?
It's tough. I don't know if this is the answer you're looking for, but I try to make sure that I have a good, clean conscience about the decision that I've made,
Mm-hmm.
that I've given opportunities to restore and resolve if there's defects or deficiencies. But I also had the ability to compartmentalize because at some point it does have to become just business.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I've been taken advantage of many times because benefit of the doubt. I do believe this. If somebody wants to leave, and I tell people, and not many I find are mature enough to operate like this, but I don't want to see somebody have to go to the unemployment line. I'll help them in their career search. I'll give them the time they need to look for a job.
Oh, wow.
And transition. I mean, if it's a decision they've made, but just do me a solid and say what you're going to do and do it. Like, come to work and still participate in a meaningful way, right? Because cost of sale is labor, and we have to produce something so that we can produce income and pay bills. So this is not a food stamp line here. I don't want to be just giving stuff away. But if you're willing to contribute, I'll help you on your journey. And I just feel that way very, very strongly. I don't like to have a separation that it doesn't have to be bad.
Yeah.
Look, so somebody comes to work for you, and they're going to go work somewhere else. That is the culture and nature of people who are employees.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like them to be long-term and loyal here. I'd like to create a culture that, one of the things that, we're talking about our goals is I want employment at RestorePro to be coveted in the community. So we're talking about how do we build that culture? But at the end of the day, change happens. And so try not to make it more than it is sometimes. And I also try to help people land on their feet as long as they're willing to be a good partner.
Those conversations that you have with employees saying, hey, I want to help you. This isn't going to be a good fit, may not be working for you long term here. You're going to have to find something that's a better fit for you, and I'm willing to give you the time and opportunity to do that while you're still employed here. Do you typically lead that conversation when you see an employee who's starting to struggle, or is it more of it's their responsibility to come and talk to you, and then we talk through what this looks like?
Look, every separation is different, right? Mm-hmm. The circumstances dictate how you're going to handle that. And I do make sure people, my staff knows that that's how I feel about things. It's still unnatural to feel like you can go tell your boss, hey, I think this isn't right for me.
Yeah.
I think that you're not going to be pushed out the door.
It's a scary conversation.
It is a scary conversation. So I get that too. But I'm just telling you how my DNA works. Mm-hmm. I will work very hard to help somebody land on their feet if they're willing to be a good partner. And that's the if. And it's a trust issue. And I get it. It doesn't always work out that way.
Yeah.
But there's also situations where you feel like you don't have a partner. And so the best thing to do is just to separate. And so, every employee is different. Every circumstance is different. We all build reputation and we all get merit, right? We build equity in those relationships based on how we treat each other. And I'm just saying that my heart's open to help if I have a good partner. That's just how I think. I'm not quick to pull the hook and put somebody on unemployment. Yeah. That's it. That's my philosophy.
I fired multiple people over the years when I worked for my father, and
it's never pleasant.
It's never pleasant. In Tackett says that. He says if you ever have a day where you enjoy firing people, it's time to quit.
In the early days, it was really hard. Now it's just hard. But again, knowing that at the end of the day, most people land on their feet, right? If somebody can learn from it, but it's one of the components of business that it's not pleasant, but we got to build a good team. Hey, what happens when you go out in sports and you try to make the team and you don't make it or you get cut, right? So hopefully it motivates you to go work harder and hone your skills or to pick a different sport that you can do good at, but change is inevitable, right? And so I've only got so many positions on the team here. And so I want the best. And we're not always, not quite translate that straightforward. We're not always going to just push somebody out because we find somebody better. That's what sports is about at a high level.
Right.
But we're looking for good talent and contributors.
Yeah, it only takes one or two on the team who's not producing to start to drag others in the opposite direction. You very, very rarely see it the other way, that the top producers are able to drag somebody up. They're traditionally, the bottom producers are going to drag somebody down. And so we have to be aware of that. So let's switch gears a little bit now into some discussions you and I have had over the years when it comes to cash flow. This industry is notorious for up and down cash flow issues that take place. A lot of it is beyond your control because of the nature of the business that we do. What is your philosophy when it comes to managing cash flow in your business?
Well, one of the major changes that we made was we have divested ourselves of having a full-on construction division for building back. So we have remodeled to be primarily a mitigation company. I'm not saying I don't do any repairs. I do some repairs for the right client and for the right price. And the price is what pulls that down in terms of the availability of those types of projects for us. I look for opportunities and I want to help people. But at the same time, what a cash flow drag that all was, especially with the mortgage meltdown. Everybody had a bank listed on and they weren't friendly, and the inspections, and you ended up being truly financing projects. We don't do that anymore. So that's one change I made, and a primary driver on that, besides organizational struggles, was cash flow. The other one is having good payment terms. So many times, I think, as restoration contractors, we are afraid of retribution. We're afraid we're going to be blackballed. And I would suggest that we all take a step back, do a good job of onboarding, have strong contracts that have payment terms spelled out. Obviously, circumstances can be mitigated and managed. If you have a client, look, Jeff, if I was working for you, I know you, I trust you. And if you said to me, I got this $48,000 bill and you're working hard with me and we're working through it with the insurance company. And I say, well, my payment terms are 30 days and you're doing everything that you're supposed to do. And we have that relationship, I'm not going to be quick to like, take aggressive collection steps.
Mhm.
But then I also might say, hey, Jeff, guess what? We're friends. Don't make this personal. And I want you to think about the illustration of if somebody were to slip and fall on your sidewalk on the ice and have to have their hip replaced,
Mhm.
the only way that they can tap into your homeowner's insurance is to sue you.
Mm.
That's your own mom would have to sue you to tap into that insurance, right?
Okay.
Now, mom doesn't dislike you, but she's following the rules, right? So I say, hey, Jeff, we have to follow the rules. So now what has to happen is I have to send you a collections letter, and I need you to forward that on. And now the next step is I'm going to outline the dates of if we have to put a lien in place or if we have to file a lawsuit in order to collect our bill from you. But you start turning the heat up instead of just playing the let things go and go and go. And of course, have honest conversations and make sure everybody understands what your collections process is. Viola helped me with the collections process. You guys have it all mapped out.
Mhm.
I'm sure you've seen it,
Mhm.
and we follow that.
So when cash does get tight, even when you're doing all the right things, which is just where the industry is going, and we're seeing that right now nationwide, and I think with the wildfires taking place in California and other events that will be coming up here with the freeze, you're going to get more of this. How do you prioritize your expenses when we're in these times where cash is tight?
Well, I can't tell you I've done it right. I've done it wrong a lot of years.
Mhm.
And that's part of growing and learning too as an entrepreneur. But prioritize. So first of all, you got to have 3 months of operating capital set aside.
Okay.
That to me, I've heard that number and I look at that number. At least 3 months of payroll. You got to come up with so you pay your employees first. You have to pay what's critical in terms of being able to produce, and you have to be very demanding, if you will, or stay on top of the details on the onboarding and the collections process. So you have to do the follow-up calls. You have to call the adjuster, or whoever the stakeholder is that can influence. Might be call the homeowner. Tell the homeowner you need to call your adjuster. But as I like to say, when you're making collections calls or discussing money and how that all flows, is words like soon, maybe, I tried. Those are all things that don't fit in the conversation.
Mhm.
Accountability happens when you talk about dates on calendars. Those are numbers and weeks and times on a clock, and you start managing expectations and setting follow-ups, and you got to work it really, really hard. The other thing I would suggest is having a line of credit available. If you've got assets that you can use, then lines of credit aren't the most difficult to get right now. They used to be very difficult, but things have freed up. And the banks don't want to loan you money when you really need it.
That's right.
So I would suggest, if you're in a good place financially, to get your line of credit established, and then don't abuse it. So the one lesson I didn't really understand early on, these are lessons in business, is that a line of credit is designed to be pushed and pulled from and to be arrested.
Yeah.
So many people might say, oh, I got this line of credit and I'm going to go ahead and buy this equipment. Well, when are you going to pay that money back? So it has to be used for the right thing. So when you're having a shortfall to cover a tax deposit or a shortfall to cover a payroll because of cash flow, right? You have receivables you haven't brought in,
Mhm.
and you can cover based on receivables, but you can't cover based on what's released and in your bank account. Then that's the time to use a line of credit. And then when that money comes in, pay it back. Don't try to hold. So I thought, well, hold reserves in your checking account, even though you've got your line of credit maybe tapped out. No, you got to pay the line of credit back. And that's just a financial person would advise you. Your bank would advise you. Unfortunately, you have to be advised before you make the mistake.
Yeah.
I learned the hard way. And then what happens then is your line of credit gets termed out. So now you have a loan and you don't have cash flow again because you don't have this line of credit. So managing money is a big deal. You have to be very disciplined about that. And if you aren't, it can be a detriment. If you are, it can help you. Cash, and Chuck will tell you this, money is just another tool in your tool belt. And no different than a dehumidifier, we have to maintain those. Well, we have to maintain a healthy sense of a balance sheet. When the balance sheet gets upside down, we need to understand what that means. And that's where someone like Chuck or a consultant with BMA or your CPA can help you look at numbers, and those numbers tell a story, and you're wise to listen to that story, not just to ignore it.
Yeah, I think people need to realize that cash in the bank's a lagging indicator. It's the result of. If you have a lot of cash in the bank, well, that's because we made good decisions and actions, and maybe you got a little bit lucky and we've got some things dialed in. And if we don't have cash in the bank, well, that is, again, a result of. And what were the decisions and actions that caused that? And then how can you make adjustments? Because cash is king. And in this business especially, because you're right, you can quickly become a no-interest bank for your community overnight if you're not careful.
Right. Cash is king. I will say one of the blessings in the restoration business is if you make a mistake, you can recover fast. Mm-hmm. You know, when you're in retail and you're working on thin margins, if you make a mistake and get behind, you may never be able to catch up. And that's why you see small stores and retail go out of business. The good news is if we make a mistake in this business, we can recover, but we have to learn fast. Mm-hmm. Be humble, ask for help, listen to the counsel, mm-hmm. make the adjustments, and you can turn it around fast, but you got to do it right. And learning how to read a balance sheet and learning how to read a P&L and understanding your costs, your COGS, your SG&A, your overhead, what those numbers need to look like. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things Chuck could do is sit down. Scott does it with me. We go through and we look at those ratios. And if those ratios aren't right, you know, you're either going to increase sales. So what's the plan to do that? And how fast can you turn it? And what's the hard activities? So you're either going to bring more revenue in quickly, or you've got to trim expenses. And where can we make the adjustments on the bleed side? Yeah. But you've got to bring those ratios into harmony. And if they're not into harmony, it tells a story. And, you know, that's the difference between being healthy and having high blood pressure. And we've all been through the high blood pressure. What's the story? Chuck said, you go out and you dance at the mailbox, you know, I wonder if a check came. You know, I got to make payroll today or tomorrow. And did the mailman, you know, get that check delivered? Well, if that's where you're living, ask for help. And that's not a good place to be. Look, we're going to be there sometimes no matter how well we operate. Mm-hmm. But if we find ourselves living there, you know, we need help.
Earlier in one of your answers, you mentioned onboarding a customer. And a lot of times when we get customers, we're just so excited and let's get to this and let's go start punching some holes in the wall and let's go make some bucks because we got to make payroll here again. But I know that from talking to you that you're looking at the onboarding process of customers a little bit differently nowadays, and you're making some changes into how you're doing that. Can you describe the direction that you're going and what that looks like?
Well, it's everyone's afraid to lose an order. And sometimes the best order you get is the one you lose. Mm-hmm. So we try to make sure we explain how insurance works, that the contract alignment is their insurance policy. They have a contract with their carrier, and we have a contract with them, and the rules of indemnification. So we'll just try to do a good job educating. We try to have strong contracts and have strong communications and have those very same frank conversations with adjusters. You know, a lot of times we have our bills sent out by reviewers. I'm not a program vendor. I am an independent. And when the reviewing process happens, you know, if it's a legitimate conversation, fine. If we've made a mistake, fine. But if it's just a matter of, well, we don't acknowledge price lists. You didn't use the canned price list. Mm-hmm. I'm not having that conversation. We get to charge based on what we need to make our company profitable so that we can reinvest in our people. You think about this industry, I think about the insurance side. Those people have health insurance. They have good PTO, paid time off programs. They make a living wage, right?
Yes, they do.
And are we doing that for our people? That's the question I would like to leave with everybody who listens to this interview. Up and down through our organization, you know, is what we're doing legitimate? And then do we need to do something different? Or are we being stuck or forced by market forces into something that's not really sustainable? And that's it. That's kind of how I look at it. So I'm not a great negotiator. I'm looking for cause and effect. Did I make a mistake? Do I need to do a correction? But if it's an opinion, I'm not a good guy to negotiate that with. We're going to collect our invoice.
Yeah, it's a very strange industry that we allow others to dictate our pricing. I've worked in multiple different industries before coming here, and we would have never had that discussion anywhere. And I think you're 100% right. Your pricing's your pricing. Your estimate is your invoice. and you've got to stick to your guns, but you also have to be able to defend it, because there are times where maybe a mistake is made or there's a question that needs to be made. How do you go about keeping that conversation professional with an adjuster when at certain times you might think they are potentially the biggest idiot on the face of the earth?
It's just the facts. I mean, RA white papers are a big help, explaining things. So here's the deal. I'm not going to have a debate. I will answer a question. I will explain my position, and then I need to flip the switch and move on to something else. There's so much drain that can happen if we get caught up in the whirlwind. I think transparency is important, and I think letting the insured know on the front end that we could have this. Look, we know who the people are that are sending our scopes and work invoices out for these TPA reviews. Set them up and let them know ahead of time. Here's how things are going to go. And here's some of the conflict that's going to happen. Here's how we're going to handle that conflict. So when it happens, they're like, oh, this is going exactly like he said. And build a network, right? If you think that someone's going to be unreasonable, then we're not adjusters. We're contractors that have a service rendered and a bill due. So maybe we need to make an introduction to a independent adjuster, or a public adjuster, I should say. And I can't fix everything that's broke, but I can introduce a client to resources to make things right. And so first we want to build a relationship with the agent and give him a chance to look at the situation, and maybe he has got some influence to help, because we should be asking for something that's righteous and reasonable. And if we are, then we get them involved. They're a stakeholder. We can talk to the adjuster and ask for them to have another adjuster assigned or work with a supervisor, because again, we should be able to defend what we've built. That's advocating for the insured. The next thing would be making sure that the insured knows they have options for help. So the last place I want to see them end up is with an attorney, but a public adjuster, or even a dialogue with the state insurance board might be in order to help them resolve the conflict. But one thing is sure, be transparent. When there's correspondence going back and forth right from the beginning, as soon as I get a correspondence, then our coaching is to involve the client. That whole discussion that happens, don't let it happen in the dark. Make sure the client is part of that, because you're really negotiating their liability. And that's what we explain right up front, that we're sorry that you've taken this position, and the insured's in the correspondence, that the balance between what you're trying to pay and what our bill is, you're trying to push that liability back on the insured. Mr. Smith, could you comment on, are you willing to pay? You paid your deductible. Do you think you want to participate in these additional costs? If you do, let the adjuster know that. If you don't, you need to let this adjuster know that as well.
Yeah, that coaching definitely goes both ways, and it is part of the responsibility, because this is a world that you live in and you deal with every single day, and you have for a long time. But for most of the people you work with, hopefully their basement isn't flooding every other year. This is a new experience. And you mentioned it earlier, when you let somebody into your house and they're touching your things, that's very, very personal. And they're scared. And the TV and the news and everybody has told them that you're a contractor, so you're a thief and you're a bad guy. And
Yes.
Trying to change that perception in their world that, hey, I'm your advocate. I'm here to help. I want to get paid. I want to make my money. But this is our community. And we do this because we really love helping people.
So elevate the quality of your presentation. Are your people in uniforms? Are your vehicles cleaned? Are you being respectful of the property? Strategies for Success had a great program to teach that. Something as simple as when you park in the driveway, don't park in the driveway. Ask them, is it okay if I park in your driveway? There's these what we call positive moments of truth that you create by how you handle the customer. When you come to the door, do you have a logoed and a labeled badge on so that you're clearly identified? I mean, we don't live in secure times, right? People knock on your door at night. You want to know that they're the right person. Ring the doorbell, step back, make sure you're visible. Is your hair combed? Are your teeth brushed? Are you presenting with employees who can speak the English language in a way that's respectful? And are we focused on the work when they're at a house instead of talking about who won the football game last night? And when you walk in, oh wow, is not a good expression. Well, I've never seen one of these before. Yeah. This is really messed up. No. So think about bedside manners with a doctor. We need to have restoration side manners. We need to go in instill confidence in the client. Hey, we got you, and we're going to help you recover from this, and we're going to be professional. And it's scary to have people in your house when you're not home, or even to have people knocking on your door every morning. We tell our customers when we arrive, you're going to love us. And then through this process of restoring your home, when I start running fans and setting up containment, and there's going to be a period of time where you're not going to like us very much. And we're going to ring the doorbell and you're going to be in the shower, right? We got to start communicating well and planning, but you're going to get tired of us and you're not going to like us so much. But when we get done, you're going to love us.
Well, I'm gonna warn you right now that term restoration side manners is the first time I've heard that, and I'm going to steal that, and I'm going to use that often. So
it's a big deal. It's a big deal.
It is.
So selling the invisible, people are going to judge you. It's not if people are going to judge you. People perceive. We all perceive, right? So what are they perceiving from how you present when you show up, and then how you interact with them? What are they perceiving?
So let's switch gears a little bit again. Obviously you've got a lot of experience and strong opinions, great opinions, and you've built this business, but you're more than just Jon Fields, the father, Jon Fields, the son, Jon Fields, the business owner. I know that you're also a man, and I respect this greatly, that you are a man of very, very strong faith. And how has your faith played out in building the business and becoming the person that you are today?
Well, one thing is trying to compartmentalize your time and make sure that you give time to the different pieces and parts of your life that deserve that time. So it's not all about RestorePro every day. And I've been blessed to have good employees and people who can carry on the work on a day-to-day basis. I probably have done a better job than I give myself credit for if I really think about how long I've delegated authority. I haven't been to a production meeting in the morning. I'm going to bet for 15 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I mean, I let the guys that have to run the show, I'm available to consult. I solve problems. They may say, hey, we need an IH, or we need a piece of equipment, or we need support, or how would you handle this, John? But I don't come in the morning and kick things off anymore. Ask the question again, because I think I mentally went.
How your faith has played out in your business.
So it pours over to ethics, I think, valuing people, treating people the way you want to be treated, the golden rule. But I always say when I walk through the community, I don't ever want to have to put my head down. I want to make sure that, we empower our people to make the right decision, to do the right thing. I'm not going to try to cover up or cut a corner. Let's have a culture of being respectful with each other, and let's try to do the right thing in helping people and not take advantage. When I write an estimate, or when people write an estimate, I want a tight scope. I want it to be accurate. I want to be able to defend it. I don't want to play the game. So many times trust is broken in this industry because the adjusters don't trust the contractors. And so the contractors write a fat scope, knowing that, okay, I'm going to give them something to trim. And well, what if they don't trim it? Now you've overcharged, or they come and they trim it too hard, or you can't get paid. It's all a game. We don't roll in that world. We write what is necessary. And then, we're a stakeholder in what needs to happen, which is getting an invoice paid.
Not one dime more, not one dime less.
Yeah. But if we make a mistake, I want my guys to own up to it. I tell them, if you break something, you be the first one to say, hey, I broke something. We take that to the customer. We resolve that issue. If we did something that contributed to the length of time something is going to take to dry, then we need to own that. We need to not maybe put that on the invoice. So things happen. It's all dynamic. But be honest and transparent in what you do, and be able to have a reason. People can make mistakes. Okay. Make a mistake. If you weren't doing anything, that's a sign that you're working. You made a mistake. Did you learn from it? And were your motives righteous? Yeah. So that's kind of the things that we talk about in the company.
Oh, that's outstanding. So last question. Obviously, Sandusky, Ohio, well known for Cedar Point, known for roller coasters and Put in Bay and Kelly's Island and all of that. But Sandusky is an outstanding fishing area on the shores of Lake Erie. And right behind your shoulder is a picture of, I believe, a northern pike.
It is.
If I'm correct there. And so what I want to hear is, I know you've got the boat. I know that you are an avid fisherman. I've gone fishing with you down in Captive Island in Florida and had an absolute blast. Tell me your best Jon Fields fishing story.
And you've been invited to Sandusky too, I might add.
I know. The
But I know you're
3-year-old daughter
coaching. Great.
is,
I know. Great.
I
Yeah.
gotta go.
Hopefully you'll find time to do that sometime.
That's on me. I want to get there.
Yeah. So, I caught a sailfish in the Caribbean. That's really probably the highlight of my fishing career. That was so fun.
Mm-hmm.
But on Lake Erie, walleye and perch, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was a young guy, I want to say I was 17, might have been 16. I was young,
Mm-hmm.
and I had my first boat, a little 19-foot runabout with 140 horse IO, and a very modest boat. But I went fishing with one of my friends. Gale force warnings. We weren't supposed to be out that day. It was cold. It was fall.
When you're
Wind
young, you're
blowing.
invincible, right?
Oh yeah, big water. Had no business being out there. But we went out the channel. I mean, we're going up over waves, and then everything disappeared. I went about 1.5 miles offshore Cedar Point Beach, and believe it or not, there was a pack of about 12 boats out there fishing on a day that nobody should have been on the lake. Northeast, huge waves. I caught more fish that day than I've ever caught in my life, and we literally were losing fishing poles because you'd have your lures out, and you'd have a couple of them because the boat was coming off of waves, and it was like trolling. We were moving so fast off the waves. Let's troll. Let's throw lines out, and so you hook a fish, and the pole next to you would just fly off the boat because another fish got on.
Yeah.
And I know I caught 4 fish over 32 inches that day. Big fish.
That's a good day. So
That's a great story.
Does that mean now that every time you're sitting in your office and the thunderstorm starts rolling in and the high winds, do you subconsciously like just run to the boat?
And I'm a fair weather boater. I'm going to be honest with you. I like the sun and the wind. I don't fish as much as I'd like to. One of those things, it takes time. I'm hoping that as we go through the next few years, I can find more time to fish. But right now, we boat as a family. So we go out and we enjoy the sun, and we enjoy running to the islands and having a meal or swimming. And we anchor off. This is a beautiful area to boat. We've got leeward spots. We've got the islands. We've got beaches that really other parts of the lake don't enjoy. So this is to me a paradise in the summer. And we have the Cedar Point Park and Beach. I'm not a Cedar Point fan. I was with the kids. The kids had passes, but I'd like to be on my downtime just away. So that's my piece, is being on the water. Beautiful.
Well, Jon, thank you very much for sharing your insight, your experiences, the highs and the lows of everything you've gone through. I've appreciated your friendship for 12 plus years now, and I thank you for your time. I thank you for everything, and we hope everybody enjoyed the opportunity to listen to this session. So with that, Jon, I'll leave you to say goodbye to the audience.
Goodbye. Thank you. And remember one thing, business is a journey. So wherever you're at in that journey, you can make progress and improve and surround yourself with good people. I say this, I always try to bring people smarter than me into the room and be humble and listen to what they say. I think that's a key to success. And I thank you, Jeff, and I thank Viola Management and the whole team there. You guys have been a big part of the success of RestorePro. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thanks, everybody.